News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow.
Karen, we begin with new developments in the Middle East. U.S. forces have carried out fresh strikes on Iran, targeting air defense and surveillance sites near the Strait of Hormuz. The military is describing the attacks as proportional. They came hours after President Trump blamed Tehran for shooting down an American military helicopter. ABC Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl was on the phone with President Trump when the strikes were announced.
The president made it clear to me that these U.S. strikes on Iran are specifically in response to Iran's downing of that Apache helicopter. He brought up the peace deal that he is trying to negotiate with the Iranians. It seemed clear to me that even as he was ordering U.S. attacks on Iran, he still believes he can get a peace deal with the Iranians.
And ABC's Jonathan Karl says President Trump told him he does not see the strikes as the start of a major new offensive. Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Abir Abu Omar says Iran has retaliated.
Now, the Iranian response came in the shape of attacks against some GCC countries. That includes the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, but also some U.S. bases in Kuwait and in Jordan as well. A U.S. base was attacked there. The IRGC came out and said that any attack will be responded to. President Trump maintains that discussions to reach the ceasefire truce are still underway and that Pakistan is still very much mediating those truce discussions.
Bloomberg's Abir Abu Omar says Iran has not acknowledged shooting down the U.S. helicopter.
Well, let's turn to politics at home, Nathan. Primary election results are in for 4 states across the country. Much of the nation's focus was on the Democratic Senate race in Maine, where with 80% of ballots counted, progressive military veteran Graham Platner is the winner with 72% of the vote. Governor Janet Mills suspended her campaign in April due to lackluster fundraising, but she still picked up 19.5% last night. Platner's campaign was plagued by a series of scandals and accusations of past misbehavior, and he alluded to it in his victory speech last night.
Every day, I wake up and I try to be a little bit better and a little bit kinder than I was the day before. And if you give me the chance, I will be a senator for the people who cannot afford to buy a senator.
Graham Platner will now go on to face Republican Susan Collins in November. She ran uncontested in her bid for a 6th Senate term.
Karen, it was also a busy election night in South Carolina, where the Republican governor's race is headed for a runoff. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette had President Trump's endorsement in the 5-way field. With 99% of votes counted, Yvette came in first with 28.9%. State Attorney General Alan Wilson is second with 26.2%. They'll face each other again in 2 weeks. Congresswoman Nancy Mace came in last place with 12.1% after President Trump snubbed her with his endorsement, but Mace says she has no regrets.
I voted to release the Epstein files and lost some support for that. As a survivor, I chose to stand on principle and stand against the Epstein cover-up.
Along with Nancy Mace, fellow Congressmember Ralph Norman failed to make the cut. He was a strong supporter of President Trump's first term, but endorsed Nikki Haley in the 2024 campaign.
In another key South Carolina race, Nathan, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham avoids a runoff. He defeated conservative businessman Mark Lynch 56.8 to 28.9% after winning President Trump's early endorsement. Graham will face Annie Andrews in November. She won the Democratic primary with 61.5% of the vote. Andrews ran unsuccessfully against Nancy Mace for Congress in 2022. And longtime Democratic Congressman Jim Clyburn clinched his party's nomination for an 18th term with more than 90% of the vote after Republicans dropped plans for a mid-decade redistricting.
There were some other key races last night in Nevada, Karen. In the governor's contest, State Attorney General Aaron Ford ran away with the Democratic nomination with nearly 64% of the vote. Ford will face Republican incumbent Joe Lombardo in an election that's become a referendum between President Trump's no tax on tips policy and a slumping tourist economy in Las Vegas and Reno. Lombardo won his primary with almost 91% of the vote.
And in Nevada's 2nd congressional district, Nathan, the Republican race is still too close to call. With 83% of votes counted, Trump-backed military veteran David Filippo leads former state Senator James Settlemyre 45.7 to 35.3%. Retiring Congressman Mark Amodei endorsed Settlemyre to replace him.
And finally, in North Dakota, Karen, Julie Fedorchak won the Republican primary for her state's only House district with 73% of the vote. Fedorchak will face Democrat Trygve Hammer in November. He ran uncontested.
Well, Nathan, billionaire Bill Gates is set to appear behind closed doors before the House panel investigating Jeffrey Epstein. And now we're learning that Gates is getting help from the former counsel for the committee. And Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports from Washington.
The co-founder of Microsoft has reportedly been getting some help from Jake Greenberg, who the New York Times says was spearheading the oversight panel's Epstein inquiry until December. The Gates Foundation, which has launched an external review of Gates' ties with Epstein, told the Financial Times that it regretted having any employees interact with Epstein in any way. Gates has not been charged with anything. He has called his relationship with Epstein a huge mistake and has denied any wrongdoing. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moscow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.